Hey VC, it's Jonathan, your cheap and cheerful record collector. I hope everybody's doing well out there today. So this is going to be my latest installment of a group of videos I'm making of featuring compilations that I picked up over the years. First video I did was rock and roll compilations, I did one of jazz compilations, I did one of blues, and this will be folk and country. In the 60s, I was a big folky. Early 60s, I used to say, when I was like 15, which was 1964, I would take a bus into New York City. We'd go down to Greenwich Village, and we'd hang out in the village, me and my buddies, during the day. Go to Gertie's Folk City, the Gaslight, all these clubs, and hang out, listen to all the folk music people. This was, again, 64. I really was into folk music, and then, of course, got into rock and roll later on. But anyway, I have a lot of folk albums, being that that's what I was interested into at the time. The first one I'm going to show is a folk box set called the Folk Box by Elektra, originally put out in 1964. This is a 1966 repress. Just great. Comes with a booklet with lyrics and photos. And lyrics. And they're broken down into different sections. So it's, I think it's 4 records. And each side has a different theme. It's cool, Elektra Black Label. So one side is called the work songs. One of the other side you saw just there is called Nothing But the Blues. Let's see, what we got here? Yeah, so they have Songs of the Old World. One side is Settling, Exploring, and Growing in the New World. Work songs, Many Worshippers, One God. Country Music and Ballads to Bluegrass. Nothing But the Blues. Of War, Love, and Hope. And Broadside, Topical Songs, Protest Songs. And they cover the whole range of folk music going back to the 40s and 50s. So you have earlier people such as Cynthia Gooding, Ewan McCall, Susan Reed, Ed McCurdy, Gene Redpath. Then you also have the New Lost City Ramblers, Pete Seeger, Leadbelly, Cisco Houston, Josh White, Judy Collins. Country music, you have Eric Weisberg, Clarence Ashley, Eric Weisberg, again, with Marshall Brickman, Doc Watson, the Dillards. Nothing But the Blues have Sonny Terry, Big Bill Broonzy, Leadbelly, David Ray, Dave Van Ronk. And finally, Broadside Topics. Again, Woody Guthrie, Big Bill Broonzy, Hamilton Camp, Phil Oakes, and Pete Seeger. Great box set, just wonderful. A great introduction to folk music. Next one I picked up, this one also I picked up at a Goodwill. This was called Folk Songs and Minstrelsy. And this is from the Classics Record Library, Vanguard Records. And I'm trying not to break the thing here. This is a Book of the Month Club recording. Classics Record Library. And this does not have a booklet with it, unfortunately. But again, you have people like Ewan McCall, Ed McCurdy, Joan Baez, Bob Gibson, Ronnie Gilbert, who sang in the Weavers, and Cisco Houston on one record. On this other record, if I can get it out, we have Odetta. This whole side is Odetta. And the back side, the flip side of that is also Odetta. So it's a whole album of Odetta there. This one is Cisco Houston. Cisco Houston, if you don't know, was a good friend of Woody Guthrie and bumped around the country with Woody Guthrie. He sang at work camps, sang at union halls, etc. with Woody. Unfortunately, he died young of cancer. Great singer. Side 2 of this is The Weavers, which was Pete Seeger, Ronnie Gilbert, Fred Hellerman, and Lee Hayes. And the last one is, this I don't know, The Deller Consort, Leon Bibb, I know, Tommy Makem from Tommy Makem and the Makem Brothers, and more Cisco Houston. So really nice set, in really good condition. Another good little find a couple of years ago. Always on the lookout for these compilation box sets. When you find them, they're usually not expensive. Really good. That was from 1962. The next one is not really a compilation, but I included it because it has a special place for me. And this is the Woody Guthrie Library of Congress recordings from 1964. When I first got this in the 60s, my parents were friends with this man named Howard Leventhal, who was the producer of The Weavers, was the head of the Woody Guthrie Foundation, etc., etc. One time, my parents and the Leventhals were going out for dinner. They couldn't find a babysitter, so they brought me along, and I babysat for their two kids. When they finally came home, he said, well, you know, instead of money, just pick out any record out of my collection you'd like. And this is the record, the collection I picked out, the Woody Guthrie thing. And this was probably in the mid-60s. And when I went off to college, I took this with me to college and played it all the time. Here's the booklet. And it's basically of, here's one of Woody's drawings. It's basically Woody being interviewed by Alan Lomax. 3 hours of songs and conversations. So basically, Alan Lomax would be talking to Woody and saying, you know, when you grew up in Oklahoma, what are some of the songs you used to hear back then? So Woody, we used to play these kind of songs on Saturday night. So he'd play that. And they go on. And the whole thing is 3 records of him talking about his life, leaving Oklahoma, going to California, getting involved with the union movement, etc., etc. There's a great picture of Woody. So 3 record set, great stuff. Woody Guthrie, Library of Congress on Elektra. Here's a record called The New Folks Volume 2, and it's also on Vanguard. This has Eric Anderson and Phil Oakes, and the other 2 people I really don't know, Bob Jones and Lisa Kindred. But it's on the black Vanguard Stereolab label. Love that label. Again, Phil Oakes, I was a big Phil Oakes fan. Saw him perform a number of times. And again, also has Eric Anderson on this, who's a great singer-songwriter. Phil Oakes does a lot of his stuff, There But for Fortune, William Moore, What Are You Fighting For? And some things I didn't know, Talking Airplane Disaster, and Paul Crump. Eric Anderson does Dusty Boxcar Wall, Come By My Bedside, great stuff, Rambler's Lament. This is 1964. A lot of these are in the 60s. Here's one called Introducing Broadside. There was a magazine, a folk magazine called Broadside. This is from Volume 1 from 1964 again. And this comes with I think it came with a inner sleeve, or maybe not, they talked about it. I guess not. My mistake. Thought it had a booklet inside. Nope. On Broadside Records. And what's cool about this is that it has New World singers doing Blowin' in the Wind, Pete Seeger, Peter Lafarge, who wrote Ballad of Ira Hayes, Phil Oakes, and Happy Traum, and someone they call Blind Boy Grunt. Well, in 1964, Blind Boy Grunt, Bob Dylan, had a contract with Columbia and couldn't go under his own name. So they put him out here as Blind Boy Grunt. And he does, let's see, John Brown is one song he does on here. And Only a Hobo, Talking Devil. So there's 3 songs in this album as Blind Boy Grunt. Bob Dylan on Broadside Records from 1964. Next one I have is also Broadside, but this is called Broadside Reunion. This is from 1972. It was released in 72, but they are older recordings. And yet again, they feature Blind Boy Grunt on this album. along with Phil Ochs and Tom Paxton, Peter Lafarge, Len Chandler, etc. And again, on the broadside label. And on this one, Dylan, as Blind Boy Grunt, does the Ballad of Emmett Till, which is actually a movie that just came out about Emmett Till. Also, the Ballad of Donald White, which I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not sure I've heard this. I don't remember it particularly. He also has Trainer Travelin' and Dreadful Day. She actually put together almost a whole half album of Blind Boy Grunt stuff on broadside. Bob Dylan recordings. So that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. That was 1972. It was released. And this is a Electra folk sampler, really early, 1956. And two things I love about this, besides the fact the record's great. You got the really early Electra label. How cool is that? And this features, again, we're talking 1956, so it's before a lot of the 60s folk revival. And you have Ed McCurdy, Clarence Cooper, who I didn't know, Cynthia Gooding, who I've heard before, Theodore Bickel, Gene Ritchie, Cynthia Gooding. But the most interesting thing here is that there's a song called Crawdad Song from Folk Songs Once Over Lightly, sung by Alan Arkin. Alan Arkin, the actor, originally did folk music before he went into acting. And he put out an album or two, and it's on here, which is sort of interesting to have. So yeah, Electra. Folk sampler. 1956. And it's in surprisingly good condition, considering it's, 70 years old now? Just about. Let me get that in there. There we go. Next one I picked up just because I love the cover. And it's again an Electra folk sampler. And that was sampler number 1. This is sampler number 3. So great. Jazz, folk, and pop. This is 1957, a year later. By then, the same label. Very cool. And this has similar people on it. Josh White, Cynthia Gooding, Clarence Cooper, Ed McCurdy, some flamenco guitarist, Susan Reed, etc. New York, and the second side, which is pop and jazz, has New York Jazz Quartet. That's about it. Yeah, New York Jazz Quartet. So pretty cool. Great look. Love the cover. Electra sampler. Here's another one. This is called Folk Song 65. Also on Electra. 15th anniversary commemorative album. Complete Electra catalog is enclosed, but it's not. And this is on the red Electra label. Cool thing about this one, it has people, Tom Rush, Judy Collins, Kerner, Ray, and Glover, who I love, Blues, Rags, and Hollers album, Hamilton Camp. But the side 2 starts off with Paul Butterfield, Born in Chicago, but it's not the same recording that's on their first album. It's a different take, which is sort of interesting to hear a different take on that great song. Also, Mark Spolestra, Fred Neil, and Phil Ochs, again, with Power and the Glory. So great recording, Folk Song 65, obviously from 1965. Now we go more into a little more country and away from the folk. And the first one is called Friends of Old Timey Music on Folkways. This is from 1964. And on the regular Folkway album label we know. But this is all recorded. I should have looked this up sooner, I'm sorry. So this is all Doc Watson, Friends of Old Timey Music, Monroe Brothers, Jesse Fuller, Doc Boggs, John Riley, Clarence Ashley, etc. All done in the 60s. And I love the ad on the back. Pretty cool. Friends of Old-Timey Music. Next one's sort of cool. This is a compilation in the 60s. This came out in 63. A lot of times they'd have country, and also to do with rock, songs of X group performed by another group or another people, not the original artists. So this is called Country Queens from 1963, and they have songs made famous by Patsy Cline, performed by Faye Tucker, whoever that is. But the second side is hits made famous by Kitty Wells, and the singer is a 17-year-old unknown named Dolly Parton. So this may be Dolly's first recording. I really don't know. She doesn't sound like regular Dolly. It sounds more like she's trying to sound like Kitty Wells. But I thought that was so cool that it was a one of those throwaway albums you used to do of songs where they make you think it was Kitty Wells or whatever, but it really wasn't. It was just an unknown at the time. And in 63, Dolly Parton would have been 17 years old on Somerset Records. She does It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels, Making Believe, Letter to Heaven, Release Me, Two Little Orphans, and Little Blossom. And it's pretty great. Country Queens, early Dolly. Here's another one I love. Country Western Radio. Released in 1977, but these are all recordings from the 1940s. Rare radio recordings of famous country western groups of the 1940s. 4 complete programs. And a little flyer they gave you with that. Here's the cool label. Country Western Radio, release number 69. And side A has the Hank Williams Health and Happiness Show from 1952, syndicated with Hank Williams and the Drifting Cowboys and Miss Audrey, who is his last wife, who issues with that, everyone knows. Also on the second side is the Ray Acuff Show, syndicated by Royal Crown Cola, Best by Taste Test, with Ray Acuff with the Smoky Mountain Boys. Side 2 is Carson Robinson and his Buckaroos, syndicated for Ford R&G used cars. And the second of that side is the Sons of the Pioneer Show, America's Favorite Singers, with Bob Nolan and Pat Brady, 1949. I wonder if that's the Pat Brady from the Roy Rogers shows. Well, Roy Rogers used to sing in the Sons of the Pioneer, so I would imagine it is. Great stuff, original recordings. Next one, this is Going Down the Valley, vocal and instrumental styles in folk music from the South. Again, this was released in 1977, though the recordings are all from the 1920s and 30s. They do a great job back then. They have this, and then you have page after page of information about the groups, the recordings, etc. So side 1, basically, first song, I Truly Understand You Love Another Man, Short Buckle Rourke and Family, recorded in 1928 in Bristol, Tennessee. Old Joe Clark by Ben Jarrell, accompanied by the Costa Waltz Southern Broadcasters, 1927. A song called Billy Grimes, The Rover by the Sheelor Family, 1927, etc. So it goes on and on. I think it goes up to 1930s is the last one. Little Maggie by Wade Maynor, 1937. So really original, great fiddle country music. Just love it. Most of these I picked up at Goodwill over the years. I used to go there 2-3 times a week, and now and then you'd find fun stuff. Hard to find rock, but I always find country, like original, real old country, jazz now and then, not often. Here's one I picked up I love. Old-time Southern dance music. And just as the string bands, old-timey records, there's no... Oh, yeah. There is a sheet, a typewritten sheet about the bands, which is sort of cool. The first song is the Spoonie Five, Unknown Group with Fiddle. So most of these people they don't really say, they don't have a lot of information, I'm sorry, about the groups. But all these recordings are made in the 1920s and 30s by electrical process. So you have people like the Spooner Five, Charlie Poole and the North Carolina Ramblers, Hackberry Ramblers, the Gid, I think it's Gill, but they have Gid Tanner and the Skillet Lickers, Joseph Falcon with Clemo and Ophi Brew. Some great stuff. Real old-timey dance music from the 20s and 30s. On the old-timey label. Take it out so you can see a little better. Hard to see this label. Old-timey records. So that's pretty cool. I love this old-timey stuff. I mean, these guys were just trying to make a buck and get by. They knew they were never going to be big stars, but they loved the music. They loved playing it. And if they made a couple of bucks, that was even better. All right, next one. This is from, I guess it was the Fiddle Festival every year in Galax, Virginia. And this is Old Fiddlers Convention from Galax, Virginia. This is from 1964. So this was recorded in 1964 at the festival. There's a booklet all about it. Talks all about the festival, how many years it's been going on. That's sort of cool. And again, you like that old-time fiddle music. This is in the 1960s. They were still doing pretty much what they were doing in the 20s and 30s. And on Folkways Records, the red Folkway label. Now, one of my favorite types of music, and it's Western Swing. This is a great compilation called Western Swing Volume 3 on Historic Records. Historic Recordings, I'm sorry, on Old Timey LP, same as the other one. These are all original recordings from the 20s and from the 30s and 40s. Starts off with Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys, Brownie's Musical Brownies, the Modern Mountaineers, Adolph Hoffner and his San Antonians, Spade Cooley and his orchestra, the Bar X Cowboys, Shelley Lee Allen and his Alley Cats on the old-timey records. I've never seen Volume 1 or 2. I'd love to find them. I love that Western Swing. This one, the cover's a little beat up in the back. Got a little water damage. But a great picture of the bands. So yeah, a little Western Swing. And finally, last but not least, here's an album from 1975, and it's called Texas Country. This is on MCA, and again, it's a compilation. The first album has original recordings from, again, Milton Brown and his Brownies, the Sons of the Pioneers, Johnny Lee Willis, Bob Wills, and Ernest Tubb. The second record is more current, at least current at this time in 75. Red Steagall, Asleep at the Wheel, Freddie Fender, George Strait, Jerry Jeff Walker, Joe Ely, and Tanya Tucker. Great two-record set. Texas, you don't need the label. It's the regular MCA Rainbow label. Nothing special there, but great, great music. So that's what I got for folk and country compilations that I'm showing. I have a lot more. I may do one more compilation video because I realized I have a series of R&B records that I want to show. So I'll probably do one more in this series. I hope everybody enjoyed what they're watching. If they did, please give me a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel. And until next time, peace.